was just telling Jack he looks so different than the farmers that I'm used to.
Yeah, so you said you grew up in Lancaster, PA with
Lancaster, PA.
Amish.
Yep. Well, it's interesting. When I lived in New York and I lived in Los Angeles, when people ask where you're from, I'd always say, "Oh, Philly." And I think the older I get, the more I embrace where I'm from. I'm like, "No, man, I'm Lancaster, man. I'm Lanco. Yeah. This is where I'm from." But
yeah, dude.
Amish, man.
You got the beard still.
Yeah, we do. If we just trim this off here, we'd
have
the Amish look. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Maybe it's keep a clean ship up top while they're eating food or drinking raw milk. Maybe.
Got you. Do they have good milk?
They have awesome milk.
Yeah, that sounds great.
When I was a kid, there was a huge Amish farm up the road from us, and it was interesting because the guy had alopecia, so he was like the reject, I guess, of the Amish community because he didn't have a beard or hair. And that was a sign if you're married, you grow your beard and everything.
Gotcha.
This guy was a wild card. He also got nailed for growing marijuana in that bust like in the 2000s and the 90s. He also got nailed for like selling pit bulls for dog fighting and stuff. So I had
Amish?
Yeah, he's a wild card. This guy was a firecracker. But what was really cool and what I learned from him when I was a kid is, one, they don't care what anybody thinks about them. Like people would go by and say stuff or throw stuff at or whatever, whatever kids do, particularly like me growing up. My high school was right near like an Amish, little school, and they only go to like 5th grade. And I remember looking down on them when I was a kid, not looking down, but being like, man, they're missing out on so much. Like I got my cool pickup truck. They're on like a little scooter. How are they not thinking they're missing out?
Us and them.
Yeah. And now I realized like they were the most connected. But one of the great things that they would do, they would always bring us loaves of bread. So they'd have their kids with like a little radio flyer wagon. They'd come down the street. They'd always have, my dad always had an amazing garden, but they would bring whatever was in season. They would make their own homemade bread, some pies, and they'd always have like raw milk. And I remember thinking like, oh man, I ain't drinking that. Now, like, I can't get enough of raw milk. I'm like, give it to me.
Where's the raw milk? Yeah, dude, I agree. Amazing. So they would come with wagons, like the kids, and sling them in town.
We're just going to jump right into like the whole idea of like permaculture.
Talk about it.
And that generosity and creating community. And, it's like family, faith, and farming. And that was like the Amish. And not that it is the Amish. And I think that that's what makes them such a great foundation as like a community, because they're unwavering in their values, particularly even to outsiders. Like they would generously give whatever it is that they had. They were amazing.
Wow. And they work like harder than anybody else.
Oh, man, sun up to sun down.
Yeah.
Now,
farming, man.
They did like to ask for a ride every now and then. And if you ever give somebody who's Amish a ride, make sure they clean their shoes off, because they would literally come in from like the cows right into the car.
They like
knock their boots off the car a little. I'm like, thanks. But amazing people.
Yeah, man. That's cool. Why do you think we lost that in our society? Like, why aren't we integrated like that?
I think that we were duped I think we were duped in kind of like man's matrix. I think with the Amish, a lot of how they live is dependent on the natural systems, dependent on God. It's dependent on the seasons. Like they can't really control it, but they have faith and knowledge that it's coming.
Wow.
Where I think with like cities and how man does it, it's like we don't need the creator, we create. And we can make sure that you're in your boxes of whatever.
These builders and developers, they're like gods.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And then we get removed from the land. We get removed from nature. We get removed from communities. Like, look how many, like I was living in Los Angeles for years and no one knew their neighbor. No one really hung out, or everybody was trying to get something from somebody.
They almost don't like their neighbors. It's like a different vibe. Like
everybody was in competition,
right,
especially in Los Angeles.
Competition.
Yeah. I mean, there's some places that were awesome that people would collaborate, but majority was like a competition, especially when people are younger, like younger men, when you're really supposed to be developing your skills as a man and what those principles are of being a good man. A lot of it was just vanity and me versus you.
We're in the garden. It's existential.